Vitahavya has been considering the nature of the mind. We identify with our mind, don't we? Many of us take a lot of pride in our mind. Some people identify with the body, some people identify with the mind. It's quite easy to see how we're not the body. The body is just a changing pattern of molecules and cells, if you like. It's not so easy to let go of our identification with the mind, especially if you've got some kind of intellectual capacity. But as we found before, the mind can be our own worst enemy. We get this in extreme cases in schizophrenics who hear voices. But many of us have got little voices going on all the time, which we perhaps can't hear very clearly. Little voices nudging us to behave in ways which are clearly not in our best interest or in the best interest of those around us. So we need to get the mind into perspective, and we can do this by realizing our essential nature as awareness, which has got nothing to do with the mind. If you're a materialist, you might have a problem with that. You might have a problem with even admitting there's such a thing as consciousness, which is clearly ridiculous, because it's consciousness which is then denying its own existence. It's only consciousness, it's only your awareness that ever does anything. Everything else is notional. When you direct the attention to itself, this is when consciousness is examining itself. And our perspective is then arighted, and we've bypassed the mind, at least temporarily. And the mind is then seen as a sense organ, or as another appendage or tool. It's like the hand. If we use the hand as an analogy for the mind, it's as if we've got the hand round our throat, strangling us and pulling us this way and pulling us that way. This is what the mind does, but we can step aside from it. Perhaps only for short periods of time at first, but with increasing practice for longer periods of time, or at least more frequently. And this is self-inquiry, when we direct the attention to itself. And then we realize that the mind does not have a life of its own. It's awareness that's the boss. It's awareness which gives the mind its apparent intelligence. And this is what Vitahavya has found. Hence, O mind, you are neither the doer nor the experiencer. You have been used as a channel of instruction by the wise ones in their communication with the ignorant. But, in fact, that channel is unreal and inert. The self alone is the reality. If the farmer does not use the sickle, can it harvest? The sword has no power to kill either. The mind in relation to consciousness is like the farmer's sickle in relation to the farmer. And the sword itself has no power to kill. It's the wielder of the sword that does the killing. The sword is just an inert piece of metal. O mind, you are neither the doer nor the experiencer, hence grieve not. We don't have to worry about letting go of the mind. And the mind here consists of all our notions and of all our psychological tendencies, which sounds quite nice and psychological and clinical, but in practice it means our moods, our ups and downs, our senses of elation and depression and so on. Hence, grieve not. The Lord consciousness is not like you. It's not like you, the mind. It's not like the mind. Hence, do not grieve for him. Don't grieve for the mind. He does not gain anything by either doing or not doing. He alone pervades all. There is naught else. Then what shall he do and what shall he desire? Essentially, once you have this realization, you just get on with what needs to be done. You have no relationship to the self except as the fragrance to a flower, and this is the mind that's been addressed here. The mind has as much relation to the self as a ripple on the surface of water has to the pond on which it's rippling. It's actually the pond that's rippling, not the ripple that's rippling. Relationship exists only between two independent beings of similar nature when they strive to become one. You, O mind, are ever agitated, and the self is ever at peace. There can thus be no relationship between you two. The self and the mind do not become one. The mind realizes its own inert nature. If, however, you enter into the state of samadhi or utter equanimity, you will remain firmly established in consciousness, without the distraction of diversity, without the notions of either many or one, and realize that there is but one self, the infinite consciousness, which shines as these countless beings. When you realize your own consciousness, you can start to appreciate its own nature. This consciousness is not yours. You are no more than a notion which arises in consciousness, as is everybody else and everything else.